Hello guys, welcome back to another video. Welcome back to my channel. So I just saw the breaking news, what was happening at Denver airport involving an American Airlines flight 1006 catching fire at right engine number 2. So what I later learned is that the pilots encountered engine vibrations while on mid-flight. So actually this flight is scheduled from Colorado to Dallas, Texas. It is a regular domestic flight. So they're carrying 172 passengers and 6 crew members on board. So alright guys, so let's get into deep analysis of what exactly happened to American Airlines flight 1006. So without further ado, let's get started right away. Alright guys, so as you can see on my screen, so this is the aircraft which involved in an accident at Denver. This is the American Airlines Boeing 737-800 registered as November 885 November. So its MSN registration is 31139 and its airframe age is over 13 years old. So this particular airframe was delivered to American Airlines back on February 2012. So this 737 is powered by two CFM56 engines with a thrust range between 18,000 to 34,000 pounds of force. So like I said at the start of the video, so this is a regular domestic flight from Colorado to Dallas, Texas, carrying 172 passengers and 6 crew members on board. All right, so now let's get into the FlightRadar24 data about the sequence of events, what happened to American Airlines flight 1006. Alright guys, so as you can see on my screen, so this is the FlightRadar24 data for American Airlines flight 1006 bound from Colorado Springs to Dallas, Texas. So let's zoom into Colorado right up here and start the sequence. So at 10:33 UTC, the American Airlines flight 1006, which is a Boeing 737-800 carrying 172 passengers and 6 crew members, departed from Colorado Airport. So let's look at the graph right here. So initially you can see that the plane is initially maintaining a good climb with good speeds, gaining up and then maintaining a targeted altitude at 16,000 feet at the first half of the flight. So it is quite a normal flight, just 15 minutes after departure from Colorado, until when they enter into the mid-flight. So somewhere at this particular area, what I suspect that pilots encountered high engine vibrations on right engine, which is engine number 2. So at that particular situation, the pilots contacts with the ATC stating that we are having problems with engine number 2 with high vibrations. So we wanted to divert to Denver. So the reason why pilots chose Denver over Colorado is what they described it as American Airlines has a good maintenance facility at Denver, so they decided to proceed it. So anyway, the flight diverted to it. So again, you can see the speeds was fluctuated just right up there in the graph, and while they are normally cruising up at 16,000 feet. But again, ATC wants to confirm with American Airlines 1006 that whether they're really declaring an emergency landing at Denver. But then pilots stated that no, we are just maintaining cruising altitude. Only thing is we can't climb above that particular altitude limit because of the vibration issue. So we are just maintaining a normal cruise. So we are good to proceed to Denver airport. So as a result, the flight was cruising well again, but even despite facing with high vibration issues. So let's zoom into Denver airport. So the Denver ATC instructed the American flight 1006 to prepare for RNAV Zulu final approach via 16 right runway. So they landed at runway 16 right and the plane taxied to the gate safely. But then moments later, unexpectedly, a fire broke out at engine number 2. So let's look at that footage, which was released by one of the passengers, showing the scale of the inferno impacting the engine number 2 and also spreading the fire over the fuselage. So let me show you that footage right away. Alright guys, so as you can see on your screen, so this is the moments after American Airlines Flight 1006 landed at Denver Airport, then taxied to the gate, and then unexpectedly a fire broke out at engine number 2. So this is the footage captured by one of the passengers. So let's play the footage right away. And clearly you can see that the fire is quickly spreading up, and also a puff of smoke billowing up at engine number 2. It looks like a fuel was leaking at one of the right wing fuel tanks, and then resulting the inferno spreading throughout the rear end of the aircraft as well. So if I can recollect this incident, this reminds me back in August 2007 involving China Airlines Flight 120. Remember guys, China Airlines is a national carrier for Taiwan. Okay, so China Airlines Flight 120 is also a Boeing 737-800 carrying 169 passengers. So they were bound from Taiwan's Taiyuan International Airport to Naha International Airport in Okinawa, Japan. So while the flight was preparing for final approach, so the plane landed safely at Naha Airport, and they taxied through to the gate safely. But immediately, ground crew noticed that there was signs of fire billowing up at engine number 2. So ground crew immediately alerted the pilots about the fire at engine number 2, and immediately informed the flight attendants to prepare for passengers to evacuate. And if you look into that video footage of the evacuation procedure, you can see the emergency slides were deployed, and the fire was quickly spreading up throughout the rear end of the aircraft. But soon, moments after everyone evacuated the aircraft, the plane got exploded, and also you can see one of the pilots suddenly falling up from the cockpit and landing onto the ground, and he suffered that injury because at that situation the whole cabin completely spread up with thick smoke. So that's the result. Pilots were unable to evacuate, so they decided to jump from the cockpit window, but that was a very horrific situation at that time. But remarkably, thanks to flight attendants instructing the passengers in a very patient and coordinated way, everyone was saved, but only just 3 or 4 passengers were injured during the evacuation. The investigation took into immediate effect about the cause of incident involving China Airlines Flight 120, and they revealed that when the flaps and slats was retracted, so one of the bolts on the slat track, it got broken loose and it punctured into the right wing fuel tank, which is just right over here. So it made a gaping hole of 2 to 3 centimeters, which resulted fuel leaking up on a right wing fuel tank, and then quickly the fire immediately spread out throughout the engines and then throughout the rear end of the aircraft, resulting the aircraft breaking up into 2 pieces. Right. So if you can compare that incident with the American Flight 1006, here again you can see on the tarmac also there's a fuel leaking out from the right wing fuel tank, which is what I suspect, but in this footage I cannot verify it. But clearly you can see the fire is quickly spreading up throughout in the engine number 2, because this aircraft already encountering a high engine vibrations. So maybe because of the high engine vibrations, maybe the right wing fuel tanks got ruptured and started leaking the fuel. Again, I'm not exactly sure on that, but I'm leaving it to the investigation team on that review. So another incident which reminds me of this CFM56 incidents dates back on April 2018 involving Southwest Airlines Flight 1380, which is a Boeing 737-700. So they were carrying 149 passengers bound from LaGuardia to Dallas, Texas. So while they were cruising up at 32,000 feet, suddenly the left engine of the CFM56 got exploded, which resulted the whole engine cowling completely disintegrating it, and its shrapnels quickly spread throughout the fuselage of the 737. Unfortunately, one of the shrapnel made a hit on the passenger's windows, where one of the passengers was sitting there, and unfortunately, that passenger died during that impact. So the plane landed safely and everyone evacuated, but only 8 of the passengers were injured during that incident. So, according to the investigation of Southwest Flight 1380, they reported that one of the engine fan blades suffered a fatigue cracks and it broken loose, leading to the whole complete engine failure. Plus, additionally, the engine exploded in midair, resulting lots of shrapnel spread throughout the fuselage. But if you can compare it with American Flight 1006, I don't see any sign of mid-air explosion, but the only pilots noticed was the high engine vibration. Then later, even you can see in the footage clearly that the fuel got leaked from the right wing fuel tank, and then the fire quickly spread it up. So, by looking at this comparisons of two incidents, one thing I could really notice is this is a bit similar to China Airlines Flight 120, but again, with one common thing is that the fuel started leaking at the right wing, which you can clearly see right up here at on the tarmac. Then fuel started spreading up throughout the rear end of the aircraft. Same to China Airlines Flight 120. But the Southwest Flight 1380 incident, what I've told you, well, it is a similar scene, but only difference is it happened in midair. But I'm trying to tell you about the safety of the CFM56 engines, whatever has happened. But overall, I should say that the safety record of the CFM56 engines was indeed good, but only minor incidents, which I've already told you about Southwest Flight 1380 case. But the incidents of China Airlines Flight 120 and the American Flight 1006 shows a little similar picture here, but only difference is to verify is was it because of one of the parts got broken loose which punctured the right wing fuel tank then led to the fire, or was it because of the high engine vibrations that led to the fuel tank got ruptured, resulting the fire? Again, that case still not determined, but only thing is we need to get verification from the investigation team to know the exact cause of fire. Right, now let's look at another footage showing the passengers evacuating from the aircraft. But honestly to say, I was completely shocked to see passengers standing on the wings, and they were just standing right there, and they were vulnerable at that particular situation. So let me show you that footage also to see what's going on right there. Alright guys, so as you can see on my screen, so this is the moment where passengers started evacuating the aircraft from the left wing side of the aircraft. And I'm so surprised to see that passengers, they're still standing there. So let me show you the footage. Look at this, the smoke is spreading up rapidly throughout the rear end of the aircraft. The passengers were still standing there and they have no room where to go. So the American ground team, they immediately using ladders to rescue all the passengers. And look at this passenger, I think it's a toddler, I should say. They immediately trying to jump from the aircraft. Oh my goodness, that is so not good, guys. I mean, that is a very risky landing there. But one big shocking thing I should say is the flaps were not deployed. The rear left door's emergency sliders was not deployed. I don't know why they are not deployed. Usually in the flight checklist procedures when it comes to any emergencies, so pilots, they have to deploy the flaps to 40 degrees so that when the passengers who are attempting to evacuate the aircraft throughout this direction right here, so you do have an emergency markers on the wings, so that will allow passengers to use the flaps to slide down there and land safely. And additionally, they have to switch off the engines also the soon after plane makes touchdown. But in this situation, well, it looks like the engines were shut down, but the flaps were not deployed. The emergency sliders was not deployed on the rear left side, and everyone was bunching up at the wing, at the left wing of the aircraft. Interestingly, you also have the jet bridge also attached to the front left of the aircraft so that passengers can disembark safely. But another innovative idea what I could see from the ground crew is they're using this baggage ramp just right here. So that allowed all the passengers to evacuate the aircraft through baggage ramp. I think they did a very good job by the American Airlines ground crew. But the question still remains is, was the flight attendants made the call to evacuate the passengers quickly because of the fire spreading quickly, or did the pilots really know what's going on behind the aircraft? Well, obviously, the only thing they know is they're facing the engine vibration issue. So they thought they taxied to the gate safely. So maybe they are initiating switch off procedures. But what they don't know is that there was a fire spreading up rapidly on the right side of the engine, and the passengers evacuating the aircraft. So does the pilots know the situation? Again, what I could feel is that there might be a communication gap between the flight attendant or the pilots about that there's a fire going on right there. Maybe I should say the flight attendants made the call is what I could see, because the scale of the evacuation shows so intensive, and passengers are desperately trying to get off the aircraft because their worry is that as soon as the fire spreads throughout the aircraft, including the engines, there is a possibility of explosion, just like similar to what happened to China Airlines Flight 120, right? So I think because of that rush, now passengers evacuated safely, but thanks to flight attendants who did a good job on coordinating the evacuation procedure. But I think this has to go to pilots' hands on why they did not deploy the flaps, and also why the left side rear door emergency slides not deployed. Interestingly, another question rises is why there is no emergency slides on the wings. So what in generally you see is the emergency slides usually seen on the long haul aircrafts like Boeing 777s and Airbus A380s and even 747s also. But why not the 737s with no emergency slides on the wings? You only have directions, but why not emergency slides? But usually they say that it is because of the cost cutting wise they prefer not to use emergency slides, because according to checklists, like I told you, that during the landing they have to deploy the flaps to full, and then they have to shut down the engine so that the passengers can evacuate through the flaps right here. But in this case, like I told you before, the flaps were not deployed. The left side emergency slides was not deployed. You can also see in the image also on the right side of your screen, only the right rear door emergency slide was deployed and they were evacuating safely. So again, the investigation comes into the picture, that who made the call to evacuate the aircraft quickly. But my guess here is because of the scale of the passengers who are rushing out from the aircraft, I think maybe flight attendants made a call to evacuate the aircraft, or that is the case is what I feel. But again, I'm leaving to the investigation in this case, but the communication gap between the flight attendant and the pilots in case of the emergency situation is still yet to be determined in this case. Right, so luckily everyone survived and all escaped, but only some of the passengers suffered injuries during the evacuation, just like what you've seen here at this footage. I mean, this is so nasty landing, I should say. I hope they're okay, but I don't know how are they feeling now. But luckily, look at it, they're kids actually. They jumped from the aircraft, and my goodness, this is so intense evacuation. But yeah, but what an effort done by American Airlines ground crew, using the ramp again, like I told you before, using the ramp, allowing the passengers to get down there. That has saved a lot of time. So this is the sequence of events, what happened to American Airlines Flight 1006. And most importantly, the incidents, what's going on in the US aviation is growing rapidly. And this incident, it's just happened just a matter of weeks if you can recollect about the incident what happened to Delta Connect flight, crash landed in Ontario, Canada, where everyone on board survived the crash, and then just months later, another American Airlines, that is an American Eagle flight, colliding with the UH-60 Black Hawk chopper at Washington, D.C. So the US Aviation Safety, when it comes to the rising incidents, is growing rapidly, and FAA and NTSB is taking strict measures in terms of preventing these accidents again. But let's hope in this case, well, let's see what's going on American Flight 1006. So according to NTSB, just now what I've heard is that the preliminary report will be released next month, because it requires 30 days to get what exactly the cause of the incident involving American Flight 1006. So alright guys, so thank you so much for watching this video, and please like and subscribe to my channel, and we will see you again in the next video guys. So until then guys, fast flights and soft landings to you.